All right, all right. Welcome into a midweek segment here on the A to Z Sports Big Orange podcast. Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan, thank you for joining us. And this is a special midweek segment because for the first time since the year of our Lord 1998, a men's team at the University of Tennessee in a major sport is playing for a national championship, and that is the Fighting Vitellos, Tennessee baseball, going to a national championship series after beating Florida State. What a time to be alive, Zach. What's up, man?
God, it almost feels surreal in a way. Like there's parts of me that thinks about, okay, they're playing for a championship. You expected this, but they're playing for like a national championship in a. It's not football or basketball, but it's the next biggest sport of all of those, and it's pretty tough to comprehend in some ways, but in other ways, you saw it coming for this team over the last several years. You figured eventually they would get to this point.
It did almost feel inevitable. Like over the past few years, it has kind of felt like a situation where, an opposing pitcher starts throwing some wild pitches and you're not connecting exactly quite yet, but you're like, okay, I think, oh, there's some contact. Okay, all right, we're building up here. And it just felt like that breakthrough was coming, that, sort of the ninth inning against Florida State, this buildup of the finally it's coming. And here you are. It is, as I mentioned last week, or it might have been Monday of this week on our main show, this is sort of the culmination of everything with Danny White and with that entire shift over to the better culture that we've seen here. I mean, it's not just better; it's absolutely phenomenal. It's probably right now, Tennessee has to have one of the most successful athletic departments in America at this moment. The way that every single sport is cooking, but with baseball, the funniest part is that this is really the sport that 5 years ago I would have never thought was going to end up like this. Now, in the last couple of years, I think I even said it on the show. I thought baseball and Tony Vitello would be the one to bring a national championship first to Tennessee out of any of the major sports. But I tweeted this last night in college. Back 2010, 11, you go to Tennessee baseball games, empty stands. The only reason you're there is because it's nice out and they're giving away like a free hat. And now I think back to that, to where we're at this point, and it just I don't even know how to comprehend it, because you didn't just beat Florida State. Yeah, that first game was real dicey, incredible, one of the greatest comebacks in the in the history of this program. But they just took care of business with Florida State and just went out, hammered them, and walked away. And you're the best team in this thing left. We're going to talk about Texas A&M in just a second, do a little preview of the final. But man, it's just incredible. I don't even know what to say at this point. What an effort.
Yeah, it was tremendous. I think about that game yesterday, which was Wednesday, to advance, to the finals. And there's a moment in that game where it felt like, okay, we've thought Tennessee's luck has flipped several times over the last several years in all sports, but I think in the back of our minds, we talked about it before. We keep waiting on just that moment. We're like, oh yeah, here it is. Still Tennessee. It's that moment in that game on Wednesday when ball hit up the middle and it goes off Kirby Cannell's glove,
Yeah.
and it bounces, I guess, kind of careens towards Christian Moore, I believe, who was able to scoop it up, step on second, get the ball to first base for the double play. It was kind of a moment in the game where it's like, okay, if they're going to make it, if Florida State's going to make a run, it's going to happen here. It feels like in years past, that ball would have hit Kirby's glove. It would have somehow hit second base, bounced over Christian Moore's head. Everybody's safe, run scores. You're in a real pickle then. When that moment happened, I was like, okay, that's a play that I've seen. That bounce goes the other way. It doesn't go your way in football. You get a bad foul call in basketball. That ball, bounces away from the fielder, and it's just bad luck. And it went Tennessee's way. It was Florida State that had the bad luck. And I mean, we're not saying this is a team of destiny by any means, because they still got to go finish the job. But when you have breaks going that way for you and you're just playing good baseball, those things tend to happen. It gives you confidence that you're going to get the job done. It gives fans confidence that they're going to get the job done. And ultimately, I think that's what this team's all about. Because if you watch the end of that game yesterday, you saw a team that looked like they just won a Tuesday game against Tennessee Tech or something, a midweek game. They're happy they won. Of course, the vibes were great. The vibes have been great. They're smiling, they're high fiving each other, but they're not jumping up and down. They're not sprinting to the infield, from the outfield to celebrate with their teammates. They're not sprinting off the bench to the infield to celebrate. They're not dogpiling because they've reached the finals. It was just a normal, post game high five handshake line. Tony Vitello's calling everybody out to the outfield, just like, back when you're playing travel baseball and the coach calls you out on the field to have your little post game team meeting. It was just a normal win, it felt like, for Tennessee. And it felt like this team, I wrote this after the game yesterday, it feels like this team is just on a mission to win every game they play until there are no more games left to play. Till there
Yeah.
are no more games left to win. Like that's what it is. That's what it feels like. We're just gonna keep winning until we're done with this. And that's a beautiful thing because it feels like all
Yeah.
the pressure's off at this point.
I mean, they just play with kind of a reckless abandon. I mean, you see Kavaris Tears, Hunter Inslee just going straight into the center field wall, and I just don't know that they even have another gear other than this. We're doing this. We're gonna do this, and this is how it's gonna be. And that, I mean, it's incredible, and it's a mentality that you wish you could see in every single sports team that you cheer for, where they just feel inevitable. We've said it for so long with this team this season, especially with this lineup, where it's just relentless, and it has felt in almost every single game where, okay, if hey, we're not hitting the ace that well, but if we get to the bullpen, and we'll win. It's just felt like that, where they are just always right there, ready to take advantage of the moment. And a lot of people have brought up sort of the luck, brought up that team of destiny and all that stuff. But the fact is this: you make your own luck.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so much skill and determination involved in that, like where you set yourself up to take advantage of an opportunity. You can have that great bounce to Christian Moore, but Christian Moore has to be prepared in that moment and focused and ready to collect, step on the base, make that throw to first. It has to be crisp and right there. And Lord knows they haven't been the most crisp in the outfield. That's probably their biggest weakness. And that we've watched it all season long, but they have the offense to take up for it. And just in every single big moment, like yesterday, you just sort of felt like, okay, we're up by 4. 5 would feel a lot more comfortable here. Can somebody just do something? And Blake Burke hits a home run. And you're just like, of course he hits a home run, because that's what this team has done all season long. That is what they do. Xander Sechrist, who just kind of out of nowhere, really, with AJ Russell's injury and just everything, it just sort of falls into place where he's become this starter for you. He's stone cold, and just you know throws the right pitch at the right time in the right spot. And he does it in the biggest moments. He did it to get you to Omaha. He's doing it to get you to the national championship series. And he's just a dude from Tennessee. I loved the goofy interview that he did with Kirby Cannell after the game, where he was like, "Yeah, Kirby will be at my funeral unless he dies first," or something like that. Talking about how they're best friends. It just, I don't know. Everything is there where we've been talking about the vibes. The vibes are there, but with this team, it's not just the vibes. I mean, they are the best offense. They have a sneaky great set of pitchers. They could improve fielding the baseball, but at the same time, they make that work too. And so here you are. You're set to play Texas A&M, and in a very rare occasion, you get the 2 best teams in the tournament. Prior to the tournament, I believe the betting odds were Tennessee number 1, Texas A&M number 2. It might have even been flip flopped in some places. Um, Texas A&M has since had 2 pretty major injuries that we're going to talk about in just a second, but um, so they're not exactly the same team. But it's before we move on to that, anything else with the lead up to this Texas A&M series?
I think one of the most underrated stories of this whole postseason has and Florida State's head coach Lincoln Jarrett, who was at Notre Dame previously, kind of alluded to this Wednesday after the game after Tennessee beat Florida State. The Tony Vitello's been pushing the right buttons when it comes to pitching, and Frank Anderson obviously in that too. But Vitello's the one that ultimately the decision for in game decisions fall on him. And this team doesn't have like the first round star player. Like maybe Drew Beam, was supposed to be that guy, and he'll be drafted, but he's not going to be, round one type guy. They don't have that kind of just stud ace. I'm not even talking about a Paul Skeens, like a Rhett Lauder or somebody like that we saw in the postseason last year. Is going to be drafted in the top 10. And it feels like it is a very old school, the way these kids came up playing, like in the travel ball circuit, just kind of piecing it together game by game, whatever works. They're just kind of rolling like this, Stamos opening, going to AJ Kazi and Secret stepping up, like you mentioned. Like that's not a guy that was supposed to be pitching in the game to get you to the finals. That's not what we predicted. And it just seems to work. And I feel like it's because everybody's just willing to do their job and pull for each other to do their job. And there's no, anger about how you're being used. Like we saw last season with Chase Burns at times, even though he went out and executed when he was supposed to in the postseason, you just kind of felt that hanging over the team at times. And it's just not that way. Like, it feels like these guys all pull for each other. I mean, you got Kirby Cannell who will go pitch whenever you need him to
Oh
in
man.
whatever situation. And the Florida State coach kind of mentioned that. He's like, this team doesn't have the Chase Dolander, on it. It doesn't have some of those guys that you had to go up against, when they played Tennessee in 2022. But it works for them. What they're doing is working. They're getting the outs. They're pitching some big time moments, and you don't really know what Tennessee's going to do either. That's kind of a strategy thing that plays into Tennessee's hands a little bit, where their pitching plans aren't necessarily transparent.
Yeah.
You have no idea what Tony Vitello is going to do, so that's kind of hard to prepare for. You don't know who's coming out of that bullpen at times.
Yeah, and they kind of have selections all over the place. Righties, lefties, power guys, finesse guys, like it's sort of all over. And man, it's great. Well, can it win Tennessee a national championship? I think the answer is definitely yes to that question. But will it? Let's talk about that right after I tell you about the great folks at Zinn Sports, our amazing sponsor. We've been talking to you about them all season long. When you sign up for Zen Sports, you'll automatically earn up to a $100 no danger first wager. If your bet loses, you'll be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $100. But there's even more good news. Zen Sports offers a one-of-a-kind VIP rewards program, and if you qualify, you'll earn monthly comps at sporting events, concerts, you name it. There's even sportsbook bonuses, but the VIP program is by invite only. So if you feel that your Zen Sports play qualifies for VIP consideration, check out the program at zensports.com/VIP. What are you waiting for? Zen Sports offers true odds on all parlays, so get going and download their app at zensports.com today. Zen Sports. Betting just got better. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. No danger first wager limited to plus 500 odds to qualify. Boosted odds are derived from equivalent parlay bets offered in Tennessee. Must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. Zen Sports. Huge shout out to them. So now you're set to play Texas A&M in the final. Texas A&M, another school who's completely starved of national championships. I didn't look, but they haven't won one in football, basketball, baseball. Um, I, I, I mean, I know that to be true. May, maybe they have for football, but it was like in the 20s. It's like one of
Yeah.
those situations. Um, but regardless, it's been forever
Similar
for
fan
them
base,
too.
similar
It
fan
is
base, very passionate.
extremely passionate. There's going to be a ton of A&M fans there. This team is good. They have a solid hitting lineup. It's not like Tennessee's, but nobody is. I mean, Tennessee at this point, 5 20+ home run guys. It's an all time record. Nobody's ever done it. Tennessee's lineup is on another planet. Texas A&M is not bad. They're pitching. They have an ace in Prager, who they're probably going to throw in this first game. They have just sort of a set of guys. Cortez, who came in that game yesterday against Florida and stunk it up. But ultimately, he's supposed to be pretty good. Now they had an injury to Shane Sadeo. He's out for the rest of the season. He was kind of their number two, number three ish type of guy, um, and he's out. Braden Montgomery, who was a huge home run guy for them, he is out. They both got injured in the NCAA tournament. They're a bit of a different team than when the NCAA tournament started. Um, and I would say they're pitching, all things considered, probably better than Tennessee's. Although to your point, where Tennessee kind of has that rogue, you're not really sure exactly what they're going to do with their pitching kind of element. I I I would put Tennessee's pitching right up there against Texas A&M's if Texas A&M's is better at all. Um, so Tennessee has the advantage. Tennessee is a betting favorite here. Um, and Tennessee has, a lot of guys rested up, is in a really nice position. Texas A&M does too. They haven't even lost in the NCAA tournament, which some people would argue is actually a little bit of a disadvantage. A lot of people say, "Oh, they're due for loss." I don't know. They're playing really good baseball. They're playing right at the right time. I'm not going to buy into any of that in this situation. There's absolutely a scenario here where Tennessee doesn't win a national championship, even though it feels like, I think to a lot of people, like, oh yeah, well Tennessee's got this one, right? I don't know how you feeling about this one, Zach.
Anxious. I mean,
Yeah, well,
pretty much because you're so close, but
for
nothing.
sure.
I mean, and we've said it all year. Nothing's guaranteed in baseball, like at all. So that and if you had to pick a couple, not that you want anybody injured, but it with Texas A&M, the bats it hurts, but not as bad as if pitching was hurt.
Yeah,
I mean that because that's what can really swing a game. If guy comes out there for an A&M and shuts Tennessee down for 7-8 innings, and you can kind of use your bullpen the way you want to use it as the Texas A&M coach. You got the advantage there. It's tough to come back in those situations. You have an ace that just deals for 7 innings, 8 innings, or something like that. So you definitely can't let that happen. I think that's the one scenario that kind of scares me with Tennessee is if that happens. And that's really been true all postseason. We've said at times that even though the pitching has been great, except for a couple of that first Florida State game, which had some really bad defense played in that game by both sides, Tennessee included in that. The pitching wasn't as bad as the final score probably looked there, but they gave up some hits, some runs. We've said all offseason this team isn't built to necessarily win a pitcher's duel. I think, it's not that they can't. It's just that's not the ideal way for this team to win. You'd rather get into Texas A&M's bullpen early. If it gets into like a shootout type situation, I like Tennessee's bats over A&M's any day. It's not to say they can't suddenly go cold, but if you have to bet, I mean, I'm putting money on Tennessee to score runs, more so than Texas A&M. You just got to hope somebody doesn't come out there and have the game of their life pitching.
yeah.
That's the one thing that can always kind of shut down a run in baseball is just a absolute ace on the other side.
Well, I'm hoping that Prager, I think it was trying to think of the timing, Monday, would have played against Kentucky, and he, for his time in the game, threw a no hitter. And it was 7 innings, I think.
Yeah, I mean he should be
Uh,
fine, but he didn't throw it all. I'm assuming last
it's
night.
it's technically short rest, relative to the regular season in baseball, but he
Yeah,
should be good. I mean,
yeah.
he's going to be good. It's not as much rest as Stamos and Kazi are going to have, but still. Um, and so uh, we know he's good. At the same time, maybe hopefully he got that out of his system. and and now, granted, Tennessee's lineup is way better than Kentucky's lineup in terms of hitting, but at the same time, this guy is no slouch, and it's not the end all be all. It's a best of 3 series, and you can come back, and Tennessee has lost an opener and won the next two, and you haven't lost 2 games in a row since the Alabama series way early on in the season. Um, and so, the chances are going to be there for Tennessee even if you drop this first game, but it's going to be way more nerve-wracking. Your back's going to be up against the wall, which, if Tennessee's been good with their back up against the wall, Lord knows. The one in the NCAA tournament where you had that setup, you beat Evansville 12-1. So, uh, but you know, you just look at it as a whole. Tennessee should win this, but that should is in bold text, italics, size 50 font. It's a huge, huge, huge should. And we all know there's been a lot of games that a lot of baseball teams should have won, but it is a weird sport where weird things happen. And I would put it this way. I think Tennessee will win. I mean, that is, if you're gun to my head to give a prediction, Tennessee wins this. But I'm going to be a nervous wreck. I know that much. I think most Tennessee fans probably will be. But that's a given.
Oh
I can
yeah.
guarantee that's going to happen. But
Do you remember what the deal was with Prager in the SEC tournament? He pitched 2.1 innings against Tennessee. Was it just an innings thing, pitch count thing, where he had pitched leading up to that? Because he gave up what 3 hits and 1 earned run, 2 walks against Tennessee in that game that Tennessee won. But I said only pitched 2 1/3 innings.
I don't remember.
It must have
No,
been. It was probably a situation where maybe he had thrown earlier in the tournament, shortly before that, and was kind of
maybe.
limited on pitches there. I was just looking to kind of see how Tennessee performed against him previously, and 3 hits over 2 1/3, 1 run. I mean, you didn't really get to see him third time through the lineup type deal. You got a couple hits off of him. Tough guy, but all these guys are gettable. Anybody's gettable. You just bring your A game. I know it's cliche as that is.
I do think if you ask me to give a full blown prediction here, I do think it goes to 3 games. But with Tennessee, and I would guess Tennessee wins the first, loses the second, wins the third. That would be my most likely. I think
And that would
that's what
probably
happens.
be losing the. I mean, because you got to think you're going to go Stamos Kazi game 1, just because that's kind of what you've been doing. Maybe Drew Beam
Yeah.
game 2, and then you put it on Xander for game 3 if there is a game 3, or
Yep.
if you win
I think
game
you have to.
1 and you're there in game 2, do you bring Seacrest out of the bullpen to try to end it that night? I don't know. I mean, there's so much.
Not
There's
after the
so
game that you
much
got out of
dynamic.
Beam. I mean, you
Yeah.
got Beam's best game of the entire season last game.
No, I
I
meant like if Beam gets in trouble or he pitches 6 innings, do you
oh
bring Seacrest in to pitch 7, 8, 9? I mean, I know that's not really the way things have gone this postseason, but at the same time, it's the finals.
oh
You shut
that'd
it
be
down.
risky.
There's a lot of interesting things that decisions that Tony Vitello is going to have to make at some point this weekend. It's going to be he's going to have to make some decisions that have a big impact on the game one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm gonna be very interested to see what he does. How often he goes to Kirby compared to other guys. I mean, ultimately, if you have to work your way all the way down, you have a really good option in Loy, and even if it goes that deep, it hasn't yet. But um, I, huh, I'm dude, just talking about. I'm so nervous.
Oh yeah,
I'm so nervous, dude.
I wish it started tomorrow. I mean, that way you don't have to
Uh
wait till
yeah. I mean, it just is. This is it. It's the first national championship in a major men's sports in what is it at this point? 26 years. Like it just is. It's everything.
It's
This
going to
is
last 72 hours potentially. The anxiety will last 3 whole days. It's not like a football game where you just
yeah.
get it over with, or a basketball game. You gotta
Oh,
wait. It's tough.
I'm also so ready. I mean, I just think about. I think it was John Ward's call of the was it the Arkansas game in 1998? Tennessee was number 1 and obviously everything was on the line and he starts out and says there's a certain urgency. I forget everything that he said, but it just makes me think of that. I'm going to be playing that in my mind, but he ultimately he says everything is riding on this football game. And that's how I'm feeling right now. Everything is riding on and literally, I mean, it's a national championship. Everything is riding on this baseball game and on this series. Like I can't believe we're actually here. It's unbelievable. You got to run, Zach. You got somewhere to be. Um, but there you go. Go Vols. Let's go win a national championship. And again, I want to be playing the Rocky Top Club Mix on Monday's podcast, please.
Yeah,
Because
what
first of all, that would mean Tennessee wins in 2 games
yes, that's right.
and wins a national championship. But go ahead. What were you gonna say?
As I was wondering about that, what time they're supposed to play Monday if they do have to play. It would be Monday night, I assume.
Yep. Yes,
So
and so if they play Monday night, our show will be Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah. So, Just
Hope
a viewership note there.
hopefully it's
All
a
right.
happy Monday show. We don't want to come on Monday because it went the other way. So hopefully it's
Yeah.
Tennessee wins in 2 and we can celebrate Monday night.
What an opportunity. Let's go win one. Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan, the A to Z Sports Big Orange podcast. Thank you for listening. We couldn't do it without you. We seriously appreciate it. And we will talk to y'all next week.
See you guys then.